Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. That is indeed good news. Senator Rubio, I want to talk to you about a topic that I think is going to be real trouble for you and for U.S. national security interests, at least for the first few minutes of my time, and that's the growing personal financial entanglement of President Trump, his family, and Middle East governments. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. For nearly 8 years, the Trump Organization...
One of the most striking incidents involved the Trump Organization's long-stalled real estate ambitions in Saudi Arabia. For nearly 8 years, the organization had been pursuing a hotel complex project in the kingdom. This venture remained dormant throughout Trump's presidency, mainly due to a voluntary commitment the Trump Organization made to avoid foreign real estate deals, particularly those linked to foreign governments, while Trump held office. This commitment, intended to reduce the appearance of conflict of interest, gave the public some level of assurance that U.S. foreign policy decisions would not be influenced by private business ventures. However, that assurance began to unravel just a month after the election loss in November 2020. In a surprising turn of events, Saudi Arabia's largest construction company, which has strong ties to the Saudi government, announced it would move forward with the Trump Organization's long-paused hotel project. Not only that, but another massive deal, a $200 million real estate project in Oman, was simultaneously greenlit. These deals had been on hold for years. The timing of their revival, coming so soon after Trump's departure from the Oval Office, triggered alarm bells across the political spectrum and sparked fresh scrutiny from lawmakers, ethics watchdogs, and foreign policy analysts. The concern was not limited to optics. Critics argued that the reactivation of these deals so soon after Trump lost the election gave the appearance of a reward or a prelude to future favor. They feared it could signal a dangerous new norm, where foreign governments might feel emboldened to curry favor with American leaders through lucrative personal business engagements. In essence, the deals appeared less like standard commercial transactions and more like strategic investments in a political figure who could very well return to power. The larger implication was that if Trump were to win re-election, he would enter the White House while actively benefiting from multi-million-dollar deals with foreign entities that raised critical questions. How would this influence decisions regarding U.S.-Saudi relations? Could foreign governments use business leverage to sway American diplomacy? Would policy positions be formulated to protect personal interests rather than national priorities? The reactivation of these deals also cast doubt on Trump's earlier commitments to ethical boundaries during his presidency. His decision to avoid foreign deals was touted as a way to maintain distance between personal gain and public service. By allowing these deals to resume immediately after his term, it seemed those ethical standards were more about appearances than principle.
East. During his last presidency, Middle East interests sent about $10 million to Trump properties. After he left office, Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who was his primary Middle East envoy, was handed $2 billion in investment by the Saudis, even though a Saudi investment board said the investment was a bad business decision. That investment actually comes up for renewal in 2026, giving the Saudis massive leverage over the Trump family. And then
Jared Kushner's $2 billion investment deal with the Saudi Public Investment Fund stands as one of the most controversial post-administration business developments in modern U.S. political history. As the son-in-law of Donald Trump and a senior White House advisor during Trump's presidency, Kushner played a central role in shaping U.S. policy in the Middle East, especially with nations like Saudi Arabia. His direct access to top Saudi officials, particularly Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, gave him significant influence over diplomatic and economic decisions in the region. That's why the news of a multi-billion-dollar investment from the very same government shortly after Trump left office raised red flags for lawmakers, ethics experts, and national security analysts. What makes the deal especially problematic is the context in which it was made. According to reports, the decision by the Saudi Public Investment Fund to invest in Kushner's private equity firm was met with strong internal resistance. The fund's own advisory panel, which is responsible for vetting financial transactions, reportedly recommended against the investment. They cited concerns about Kushner's lack of private equity experience, the high fees his firm planned to charge, and the risks associated with backing an unproven venture. Despite these red flags, the deal moved forward, raising serious questions about whether it was driven by business logic or political loyalty. This investment was not a small gesture. It was a $2 billion injection of capital, enough to influence the direction of Kushner's new firm and elevate his financial status overnight. To many, it appeared less like a traditional investment and more like a repayment or down payment for past and future favors. Kushner, during his time in the White House, had staunchly defended Saudi Arabia on the world stage, even after the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, an event that drew global condemnation. The cozy relationship between Kushner and the Crown Prince was well documented, and now, in the eyes of many critics, this financial deal served as a form of quid pro quo. Another concerning layer to the deal is its timing and renewal clause. The $2 billion investment was structured in such a way that it would come up for renewal in 2026, potentially during or just after another Trump administration, should Trump win re-election. This creates an ongoing financial connection between Kushner and the Saudi government, with implications that could stretch into the future of U.S. foreign policy. If Kushner were to regain any influence or advisory role under a second Trump presidency, the potential for conflicts of interest would be undeniable.
I'm hopeful that you're going to be an active voice to try to make sure that you have the tools, including when it comes to combating Russian and Chinese misinformation, to be able to confront all of the ways, many of them asymmetric, that China in particular, but Russia as well, presents challenges to U.S. interests. Just wanted to get your commitment to make sure to build that full, comprehensive foreign policy toolkit.
Yeah, not only have I been someone concerned about foreign disinformation, I've been the target of it from multiple nation states. And I've learned over time that the best way to confront disinformation is through a flood of free speech that allows the counterpoints of view to be heard and understood. I think where we get ourselves into trouble, and we've learned this now, and I think multiple U.S. companies are now admitting, is when we get ourselves into a position of determining what's true and what's not, and then using the tools of government to go after that, particularly when it implicates domestic entities. But yes, it is one of the tools that they have in their toolbox. By the way, it's not just disinformation. It's flat out influencing nation states' views of the United States writ large by promoting conspiracy theories internally in other countries that undermine us and that undermine.
Senator Chris Murphy's warning about the ethical and national security implications of former President Trump's financial entanglements with Middle Eastern governments is rooted in long established principles of American governance. Elected officials, particularly those involved in sensitive national security and diplomatic roles, are expected to uphold a standard of conduct that separates personal financial interests from public duty. This isn't merely a moral or symbolic gesture. It's a safeguard designed to protect the nation's integrity and avoid conflicts of interest that could compromise U.S. decision-making on the world stage. When Murphy raised this concern during a Senate hearing, he wasn't making a partisan jab. He was ringing an alarm bell grounded in the foundational ethics of public service. His argument emphasized a glaring double standard. Members of Congress, including senators and representatives, are strictly prohibited from holding complicated or ongoing financial arrangements with foreign governments. The logic behind this restriction is simple. Foreign entities could use business relationships to gain influence over U.S. officials, intentionally or otherwise. The appearance alone is enough to erode public confidence and raise suspicions among allies and adversaries alike. Yet the same caution appears to be absent when it comes to the office of the president or his immediate family. Murphy illustrated this contradiction by outlining how Trump and his family, particularly after his presidency, deepened their financial ties with Middle Eastern regimes. He referenced not just the revival of business deals in Saudi Arabia and Oman, but also Jared Kushner's $2 billion investment from the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund. These are not minor transactions, they're massive financial engagements involving powerful governments that have strategic interests in U.S. foreign policy outcomes. By continuing or expanding these relationships, Trump's family potentially places the president in a compromising position should he return to office. For example, if the U.S. is engaged in diplomatic negotiations with Saudi Arabia or Oman, the president's personal wealth or his family's ongoing deals could cloud his judgment or invite accusations of favoritism. Even if policy decisions are made independently and ethically, the perception of influence could weaken America's position globally and undermine public faith at home. Murphy's concerns are also institutional. If the highest office in the land can blur the lines between public service and private profit without consequence, what message does that send to the rest of the government? It creates a dangerous precedent where financial self-interest might become normalized, and where the rules that apply to senators and civil servants are seen as optional for presidents and their families. It erodes the moral high ground that U.S. leaders have long claimed in international affairs and risks turning diplomacy into a transactional game.